Good evening, and the steering committee meeting is called to order. For the reading and approval of the minutes, I call on the vice chair, Commissioner Turner.
Mr. Chairman, I've had a chance to review the minutes. I find them in order. I make a motion for their approval.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We will announce 3 vacancies and 1 alternate vacancy on the Equalization Board. And at this time, we'll call up Mrs. Stevenson for our human resource budget.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Looks like everybody managed to get in without getting soaked. So the top sheet that you have in front of you, the color copy, this is just something that I do. I just want you to see how my budget reflects over the last 5 years based on how I performed in the last 5 years versus what I'm asking for in this current year. And it will kind of highlight some of the areas where I've asked for additional monies for different things within the office. Now, this only includes items outside of salary, so it's the things that we are doing administratively within the office for programs and to be in compliance with the laws that we have to be as far as employment goes. You'll see the big difference for this upcoming budget. One of them is the NeoGov and the Max Shred, the $1,541. That was a subscription cost. The technology subscription cost went up this past year, so that was the additional $1,541. The other increase you'll see is $4,100 in office supplies. I did ask for a couple of $100, $300 for the Adobe program, and it's so the lady in my office, we get a lot of materials and we have to extract data when they're scanned in one bulk scan, so there may be 10 employees' items. In order to extract them and put them in, you have to have a special Adobe program, and she doesn't have that, and it's $380 something. So that's one of the items I'm requesting. The other item that I'm requesting is some training tables. Hopefully within the next year I'll be able to have a training room set up so that we can have our classes. It's not really a problem during the daytime hours when we have training classes, because we can use the health department if they're not currently using their facility, or we go to the Ag Center. But if it's an after-hours class like we did this past month, we had a class every Tuesday night for 3 hours on helping employees develop a retirement strategy with whether it be with Social Security and insurances and all these things, and it was every Tuesday night for 3 hours for the last month. So when we did that at the health department, that meant that somebody at the health department had to stay because they have confidential information. They've got to make sure that nobody accesses the rest of the building. Plus, it would give us an opportunity to do some other things that we've been wanting to do, but we just haven't had the space as far as training goes for the county, whether it be Excel training for our admin supports or other things. So we have tagged some chairs and some other items that we need in our office from the judicial building from when that vacates. So they had 50 chairs that we could use, so I just need the 20 tables to go with the 50 chairs, just small tables. And those were, I think it was $3,000 for those office type tables. I tried to find the cheapest ones I could. The next increase you'll see is the $4,000 for the employee recognition. What we have been doing for the last several years, and I think Mr. Turner can attest to the success of this program, we do an employee recognition for milestone anniversaries, 5 years and up, so every 5 years. And we also, anybody who's retired during that year, we have a dinner, and we have it sponsored. Cornerstone has been our sponsor ever since we've done this for the meal, so they pay for the meal themselves. So what this money goes for is the actual awards. We do a certificate and we give them an award from the county for appreciation of their service. I started doing this probably about a year after I came, just to kind of recognize those individuals in a dinner, and they get to bring a guest with them. So it's a nice event. We take their picture, we put it on our intranet site, and those type things. This next year, if everybody attends, it will be the largest we have ever had. Whenever I was creating my budget, I was like, you know, kind of taken aback, because that's what this money is for, the extra awards. Now, if somebody leaves during the year and they don't complete their years of service, obviously they don't get the award if it's a milestone. But if everybody comes, I will need those additional dollars for their award.
And also every 5 years.
Yes, sir. 5 and up. The highest we've had so far is a 45-year award. So we've had several 40, it's amazing. We've had several 25 and up awards that we've given out over time. And then, when somebody retires, it's just nice to recognize their time as well.
It's bad that the budget's going up $4,000, but it's really good that it's going up $4,000 if we're retaining folks and bringing them aboard like that. It's
I
really
do
good.
think they appreciate it. I mean, we did our survey. We do a survey every year afterwards to find out what they liked and didn't like. And the only repeat request is that we use round tables instead of rectangular. But we're using the Ag Center and we're using their tables and they are rectangular, and I'm not going to rent a round table when I have a rectangular one for free. So that's the biggest complaint we get. It's not so bad. But that's the additional monies in my budget for this year, pretty much.
We talked earlier, months ago, about personnel, and I believe we added some staff to your department. Have they been hired and everybody's on board?
Yes, we have a part-time girl who works 3 days a week. She worked a little bit, every day for the first about month to help me get caught back up, and now she's working 3 days a week. She does the filing and the scanning and I mean the abundance of records that we get that we have to maintain. Then that was an existing part-time position that I had. The position that you gave me was the admin position, and she has helped me. I do all the preparation for any legal work that we do, the briefings for the attorneys, and so then I have it ready for them when we go meet. And that takes a lot of time. Also, the records request. We are getting an abundance of records requests, and so I have to go through and I have to scan it, then I have to redact it, then I have to rescan it to make sure that they can't see it, and that takes quite a bit of time. So she gets those together. I do the redaction and reviews to make sure that we're not giving anything out, but just doing those type things and compiling all my information so that I can continue to work on the things that I do has been a huge asset to the office. And quite frankly, I don't know how I did it before she got there because I'm still really busy. So it's been a blessing.
Any other questions?
Where are you gonna put 20 tables
Well,
instead of?
we're hoping that we're going to have a little bit of extra space when all the fallout happens within our building that Melissa and I can utilize for training. So it'll be it won't just be for me. I mean, it'll actually be open to anybody who needs to use it for training, but it will be a training room.
And another quick question, does the Ag Department charge you for using their facility?
No, sir. No, sir. They've never charged us.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Is this the mayor's recommendation also, or is this just yours? I see the grin back there.
It's hers, but we're pretty much unanimous together on this. My recommendation won't go until he gets the budget. I don't have real problems with anything she suggested.
Okay, we have
Approve
a
before the
motion on the
budget.
floor to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sonia.
Next, we will have a discussion concerning asking our state legislators to end vehicle emissions testing in Rutherford County. This discussion will be led by Commissioner Robert Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I read a story in the newspaper a few weeks ago. There's a bill at the state capitol to put an end to the emissions testing in the counties that have that program, which is only a handful of them. And I've heard so many complaints about the emissions testing over the years I've been here, and this seems like a great opportunity for us to try to put some momentum behind this bill and let our state legislators know that we're concerned about the program, and I would certainly like to see it ended. I think it's an unnecessary hassle at this point. The people have to sit there and wait in line a lot of times, and then of course the hassle of having to pay the extra fee for it too. And then if your car doesn't pass the emissions or has a cracked windshield or whatnot, you might have to go and get it fixed. And it's just a hassle for people. Anything we can do to make it a little bit easier for them, I think I'm certainly in favor of. And we passed a resolution a few months ago, maybe a year ago, to let newer cars
yeah.
not have to go through there anyway. So I think the program's obsolete. It was needed back in the early 90s when the air quality wasn't what it should have been, but today we're in compliance with the air quality standards, and the cars are just very fuel efficient now and aren't putting out the emissions that they were before. So I think it's an obsolete program, and I would like to see us send a recommendation to our state legislators and ask them to end this program for us and make it a little easier for our constituents. So,
Is that a motion?
well, I guess it can be.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Well, I got a question. Is the bill up this term? When is the bill up?
It's moving
this
right
term?
now.
It's moving right now? Do we have time to get our recommendation into our state legislators? or-
We do. I looked at the schedule of the bill today, and it's moving in the state senate. It has not started in the state house yet, so I think by the time we have our commission meeting, there'll be plenty of time to get our resolution to them.
Anything else?
Does this motion just apply to Rutherford County?
The bill is to end it in all the counties where it's currently in effect, which is, your bigger counties. I'm not opposed to it just being for us, but I think the bill is
Yeah.
intended to cover everybody.
You're encouraging the legislators, the local legislators to support this.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Only thing I wanted to mention is a lot of people think that the county is getting that, what is it, $9 now?
Yeah.
That the county's getting $9 for doing this. County doesn't. Well, I think when it was 10, we were getting 25 cents out of that $10. I don't know what we're making now, do you, Mayor?
50 cents.
But the county's not making money on this, and I don't have a problem asking them to end it as long as our air quality is good enough for it.
I've been breathing good, so
Well, the bill specifies that it only applies if your county's in compliance. So if we fall out of compliance somehow, then we might have to
Right.
reestablish the contract with the vendor to do that for us. But right now, everything seems to be working well, and it's just a unnecessary obstacle for people, in my opinion.
okay, we're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next on our agenda is Rutherford Reader. I think you may have gotten an email from the county attorney. I know Mr. Plummer's here. I'd like to invite you to the table, and Mr. Dolly.
We didn't get, we didn't get a copy of whatever the email was, so
Oh.
if you want to let us know what that says.
It's not on our iPad.
You can paraphrase it for us, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, basically, we asked the county attorney to look into the case and as far as what the judge said. And I guess in the original lawsuit, there was, let's see, I think the paper was asking for 4 things. A, whether the Rutherford Reader was a newspaper of general circulation. B, procedure defense raised by the defendant. The defendant's claim for declaratory judgment, and what the plaintiff claimed for monetary damages. It looks like that what he's saying that both parties asked for a summary judgment, and the defendant was granted that summary judgment. Commissioner Stephen, can you explain exactly what a summary judgment
A
is?
summary judgment is when, if you believe your case is one that you're going to win, you can file a motion to ask the court to go ahead and rule in your favor without going through the process of going through a trial.
And that's what the judge did.
So it seems like both parties filed a motion for summary judgment. They said, we've got proof that we're going to win the trial.
Right.
And I'm assuming that the county was the defendant,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So it says the judge granted the county summary judgment.
Summary judgment.
So it ruled in favor of whatever the county's argument was.
And dismissed the case.
I think that's from what I read on it.
Yeah, that's, we don't question that at all.
Do you want to see the
Yeah,
Josh's written material?
yeah, thanks. That, and
Go ahead.
But you may need that.
we didn't, if you'll recall last time, we didn't question that. That wasn't the purpose of us being here. Well, the purpose of us being here was to ask that y'all, and Mr. Stevens, if you, correct me if I'm wrong. The lawsuit that was filed, we agree that the county won the lawsuit. But in the judge's statement and the letter that we sent you all on November the 25th of 2017, about 6 months after the lawsuit, it said that, and the Honorable Judge Davis found on page 6, paragraph 1 of the above-mentioned memorandum and order, quote, applying the criteria set forth above, the court finds as a matter of law that the Rutherford Reader meets requirements to be considered a newspaper of general circulation that is acceptable for publication of legal notice to the public as set forth in the Tennessee Code 30-2-306. That's all we're here for, is to ask our county attorney, does he agree or disagree what the judge stated was as a matter of law? The case was given in favor of the county, and Mr. Dowdy lost that lawsuit asking for these matters. But when the judge says, as a matter of law, the paper is a paper of general circulation, which Mr. Dowdy has been fighting for how many years, Pete?
Since '07.
Since '07. He spent over $20,000 with 4 attorneys to try to just get our former county attorney to agree that he is in fact a paper of general circulation. That's all we're asking for. As a citizen, and Josh asked me standing on the courthouse steps last time, what is your interest in this? While Mr. Dowdy is a friend of mine, I'm here as a tax-paying citizen who asked Mr. McCrary, why do I have to pay 50% more if I want something published in a newspaper just because our former county attorney didn't like Mr. Dowdy? And that's it.
This may, I'm sorry.
And so all we're asking for is that with Mr. McCrary not being here tonight, I would like one of you here to ask Mr. McCrary, is Mr. Dowdy eligible for legal notices to be published in his paper? We're not saying that they will be, because we've already determined that the fee officers in this county, as the judge ruled from the bench in 5 minutes into the court case, he said, folks, this is politics. The law states he meets the requirements to be a paper of general circulation. The honorable judge just said, you need to get your politics straight in Rutherford County. So my question to you as an attorney, is this statement by the judge binding?
Well, there's different parts of a court ruling. You've got what's called the holding, which is the actual binding ruling of the judge. You've also got what's called dicta, which is factual, information and reasoning and so forth. So when I read through there, that statement was in what's called the dicta, which means
Okay.
it's not, a legally binding precedent.
Right.
Now, it is very persuasive if there's a lawsuit in the future about whether this paper or that paper is a paper of general circulation, to point and say, well, this judge this judge mentioned in the past that Mr. Dowdy's paper was a paper of general circulation as a matter of law for XYZ reasons. My paper should be considered that too.
Yes.
But that was not the binding part of the ruling. The binding part of the ruling was whether the defendant was going to be granted summary judgment.
Okay.
So that was the holding. So that's a legally binding precedent.
Yeah.
So this was information that was dicta leading up to that.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that's a binding thing on us.
But then who would we turn to after almost 20 years and $20,000 plus with 4 attorneys that this paper can determine is he a paper of general circulation? And
I
I
think all you
think,
gotta do is look at the court ruling. I mean, it says that he is. It speaks for itself.
thank you. That's all I'm asking. And I would ask that you all, as a body, ask Mr. McCrary
More than it used to be.
to make a statement that if you choose as a body, or anyone else chooses as a body to run legal in a paper, if they choose his paper, he has a legal right. That doesn't mean that the fee officer has to do it. That's the politics here. But what we're saying is, why should a citizen have to spend $20,000 in 20 years and 4 attorneys to get this statement? Now, granted, the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee for several years was passing judgment on who was and was not. And the state Attorney General set out that criteria. But when was it, Pete, when the Attorney General quit issuing?
09.
In 09, and we've been fighting this since 09, and he's had to spend this money just because someone doesn't like the fact.
Well, this
that
is what Josh McCrary writes. He says, I understand the question is now whether or not it is appropriate for the steering committee and/or county commission to somehow acknowledge language in the court's order. Given that this is ultimately a policy decision, it is one that I am not authorized to make. Policies making is up to the county commission. However, I can observe the following for your consideration. First, given that the memorandum of order, the order says what it says. In other words, regardless of what the county commission does or does not acknowledge, the opinion speaks for itself, and I think Commissioner Stevens had mentioned that. Second, I am not aware of any authority that vests the county commission with the right to declare what is or is not a newspaper of general circulation. I am aware that for years, the Tennessee Attorney General's office would offer opinions on this issue. It is also true, however, that the Attorney General stopped offering opinions on this issue many years back. Admittedly, this does not leave it somehow unclear about how one gets such a declaration. This uncertainty may be at least part of the reason for the lawsuit now in question. I assume the plaintiffs thought filing the lawsuit was at least one way to get such a declaration. Perhaps this is accurate, but nothing in the opinion vests the county with the authority to make such a declaration. So I think what our county attorney is telling us that we don't have the authority to pass a motion acknowledging that a paper is considered a paper of general circulation outside of what the court's already said.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I want to put this to you. If when your budget comes due, and as a citizen, I ask you, will you run it or will you not run it in the Reader, the Daily News Journal, or the Murfreesboro Post? What would be your determining factor, whether you would or would not run it in one of those 3 papers?
I think that the mayor decides.
This is a decision
Budget
for the
committee
county
decides
court
it.
clerk.
The county court clerk, right? Okay, thank you for
I think that's what I was trying to get to too. Pete, I'm glad you're feeling better. I know you were sick last time, couldn't be here. That's what I'm trying to make sure we're all clear on is, I hear what you're asking. I think what Mr. Chairman Gooch is saying back is, no, do we not have the authority? The clerk has to make that decision. So for me to sit up here and say the Reader is general circulation, there's no value from the clerk perspective or from Pete's perspective about what that does. I'm trying to figure out what the intent is. I certainly appreciate spending $20,000. I wouldn't want to do it, but I'm trying to understand if we don't have jurisdiction over that.
I understand.
What am I missing about the request?
What you're missing about the request, in my opinion, and I believe, if I can make this clear, after the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee quit issuing an opinion, and Mr. McCrary said it was not, what was his statement? Again, I wish I had that ahead of time, but it's not, he doesn't have the authority or...
saying that the
It's a
county
policy decision.
he doesn't know of an authority that the county commission or the steering committee has the authority to make such a
Then
decision.
who had the authority as a county attorney to tell a fee officer he was not a paper of general circulation. That's what happened.
Well, go back a little bit before that. I think it, maybe correct me if I'm incorrect, I think twice the Attorney General said that the Reader was not a newspaper. Nothing ever happened after those 2 times when he said it was not.
No, I'm sorry, let me correct you, Mayor. State representative, that's no longer our state representative, but
Well, Ketron and Bear.
no,
Young Barry Rick Walker.
Rick Wallman.
Correct.
Went to the Attorney General, asked them, they said, we know more issue.
No, I was just talking about prior to that happening.
No, that's what-
There are written opinions.
There were.
Yeah.
But then, when there was no other written opinion and Pete was doing what those 4 things said that they had to do, and the judge clearly states here, as a matter of law, he now, in the opinion of the judge, he meets those requirements that were no longer in existence, but what kept him from receiving that approval from the county attorney. That's what we're here for. There is a cloud over a citizen who's printing a paper, who's had to spend the money to try to get to the point, and no one will take action to reverse that. So he's just left out. And
Bruce, isn't that what the judge did?
that's what I'm,
Well, which judge?
that's what I'm
ruled on
saying.
it?
Well, isn't it over?
No.
Which judge ruled on it? Was he General says no?
Over in Franklin.
And what about
Davies?
Robert E. Lee Davies.
In Franklin?
Yeah, because the judges here recuse themselves because they deal with the fee officer.
That's what I was trying to get at.
And here's the point. If you will accept the fact, and that's a good question, Jeff, in my opinion, that's why I'm here to say, he says, as a matter of law, the Rutherford Reader meets the requirements. And you gave a good explanation about you call it
Dicta,
dicta
D-I-C-T-A.
leading up to that. So would you not consider that being a pretty fair statement that the judge has looked at this? I sat in the courtroom and he said, I read it, he's a paper of general circulation. He said the problem here is, and what he ruled on was that the fee officers, there is a law that the fee officer does not have to allow Pete or the reader to be one that he or she accepts.
Yeah.
That's okay, because that's purely politics at that point. We can work on the politics of it, as long as the people out here understand that there's not a cloud of suspicion over whether or not if they put something in the paper that it is illegal. That's what we're trying to get removed, of what the former county attorney put a cloud of suspicion over this paper. Simply past the ruling when the Attorney General quit rendering opinions. And he's had to fight for this many years, this many attorneys, and this much money, which in my opinion is ridiculous. As a citizen of this county, I would hate to be put in that position. And it's purely out of a desire that no one pushed the issue, and he had to spend money to get it to this point.
Okay, so you just wanted the county commission to pass a resolution saying that we think, that we believe that the readers of paper general circulation.
Well, based on what Mr. McCreary said, yes, we would love that. I would love that as a citizen, because I would hate.
Obligation.
Beg pardon?
With no obligation.
Yeah, there's no obligation that anybody has to do it. But the point is, the county attorney made that ruling at one time. I think it would only be fair to a citizen that they remove that. He makes some kind of statement that they agree with what the judge said in his opinion that was rendered in March 22nd of this past year.
Well, I think the judge's ruling speaks for itself, and whether we agree or disagree with it doesn't change it. And
Okay.
So, I mean, that is what it is. Both sides are brought into court. The judge made that statement. That statement is binding on on them as persuasive precedent in the future. So if there's a dispute in the future, if they say, Mr. Dowdy, your paper is not a paper of general circulation, you can say, well, in this case, the judge said X, Y, Z, and here was his criteria for determining whether it was a paper of general circulation. I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but what we pass or don't pass is irrelevant. The judge said that,
Okay.
and so that, I mean, we can acknowledge the judge made that ruling.
That would be helpful. That's all we would ask for.
But if
is this.
if we start going off on the trail of, well, we think this paper is and this one's not,
Right.
that could create problems for us in the future. I'm fine with just saying that we have read the opinion and it says what it says.
And that would be wonderful, because at this point, there are attorneys in this town who are concerned about, well, the county attorney said at one time it wasn't, and, if we put something in there and then we have a lawsuit, we've got something to go back to. We just want y'all to acknowledge, at one point, the paid county attorney stripped that right. I think we ought to just at least, owe the citizen, a tax-paying citizen, the courtesy of saying, we acknowledge what the judge did, to at least bring something back up so the citizens of this community know that the Rutherford Reader is a paper of general circulation, based on what the judge said, not what y'all say. And then we can go on the political end after that.
But
Because
the
it
judge
is
already,
politics.
but if the judge already said it, then what are we doing?
Acknowledge that what the judge said, because the county attorney once said he wasn't. And that's the cloud that some people are remembering, and that, they don't know all we're in the weeds right now, okay? We are here. The general public doesn't realize that a large amount of income generated to the two other local papers comes from legals. And we are keeping this paper from receiving their portion, if they go out and fight for it, what the legal revenues that would come to this paper. That's what's been blocked for almost 20 years.
But if you publish in the Reader the judge's decision and his thoughts, and everybody read it, no.
Well, I'm just saying, out of courtesy to a tax-paying citizen who's had to fight like the dickens for 20 years and spend the money, what is it that this county commission is reluctant to acknowledge?
I think they're worried about future lawsuits.
Well,
That's.
we can all-
I mean, I don't like to dance around stuff like this. Here's my take on it. I don't feel good about making a decision or making a statement without an attorney sitting there.
Well, and
Because
I agree.
I want to hear from his mouth. I read his note, and I didn't get a chance opportunity to talk to him beforehand. And I'd like a chance to talk to him beforehand before I put myself out on a limb. And, I know what he said here. What he said in this email is basically, don't do this, guys, because you're going to open ourselves up to a lawsuit. That's what I'm reading. That's not what he says, but that's what I'm seeing.
Well,
I don't
see,
say
that-
I'm agreeing with that, Pete, or not. But
Yeah.
I'd like this.
Well, that's what Cope used with Lisa Crowell in 2011, because she called or had somebody from office call, wanted rates. We gave them rates. They put us on the list, or I call it on the table, and 8 weeks later, removed us. And it was because of Cope telling her that he wasn't sure he would use us in case of a lawsuit. So,
Right.
move
And
forward.
then-
I
That
think
be
we're
right,
pretty
Mayor?
close.
Sir, I don't know about all that. You're better versed on what happened then than I am.
Okay.
And I guess
Well,
that's...
first of all, you
Yes, sir.
did ask me a question, but Mr. Cope was not ever in the business of determining whether a newspaper was a general circulation or not. The only thing we had to go on, or he had to go on, is what the Attorney General had done previously.
Yes.
That's the only thing he could cite, because what they said is what they said.
Yeah,
And
but-
Mr. Baker, go ahead, Pete.
No, go ahead.
And I'm not questioning that, but what happened with the county court clerk's office was 2 years after the Attorney General said, we're not rendering any opinions anymore. So that triggered the fact that to try to get the cloud of suspicion removed from this paper, Mr. Dowdy had to go through the court system, 4 attorneys and $20,000+ to get us to this point where we got a judge who says, as a matter of law, this is a paper of general circulation. I agree with you, Mr. P. I'm not asking y'all to go on record tonight. I think I would like Mr. McCreary to just answer the question, does he agree or disagree with what the judge has stated in his opinion? A yes or no. Does he agree or disagree? If he disagrees, why does he disagree?
He agrees that what the judge says is what he said.
That I would like for him
It's
to
just
state.
that simple.
And if he says that,
He has stated that.
we haven't seen the,
Well, it's
Yeah.
not to you, it's to
Okay,
us.
okay.
Privileged attorney-client privilege. But that's what he said to us. It is what it is.
Okay.
And that's the reason I said what I said earlier. If the county attorney years ago stated some attorney general's ruling that the paper was not, so be it. But when the judge ruled that it was, it's over. In my opinion, it's over. And all you would need to do as a paper is print that it's over with, and now we're good to go. And I don't know why it needs to come from the county commission. It bothers me a little bit, Bruce, because every lawsuit that the county is involved in, if we rendered an opinion on every lawsuit that was out there, just imagine what kind of time and money and effort we'd be spending, and that's what you're asking us to do, and I'm really uncomfortable with that.
and I respect that, and had I known that was on the table, I would have simply come and said, thank you, county attorney, you have stated what we wanted to know. We didn't know that, so I apologize for taking up your time at this point, because we didn't see that or know what he had said. But that's exactly what we wanted said, that if he agrees with what the judge said, it's over with, Jeff, and you're exactly right.
But just not to confuse this, but it's not that he agrees with what the judge rendered in his writing. He says the judge says what he says. And it's a matter of that court and that judge is making that ruling.
Okay.
We all have to accept that, whether we agree with it or don't agree with it.
And I think the public needs to know that, and Pete, I don't know that we need to come back. You've stated it, you understand why we're here. I did not know, Jeff, that was there, or we would have been finished 10 minutes ago.
I think if you came back, Bruce, well, I don't want to speak for the committee, it probably would not get to the commission floor on a vote, and I would just say we agree that the judge made a decision and a ruling, and we move forward. And
May I ask you this, Jeff?
Here's what the underlying portion of this is that the order says what it says. In other words, regardless of what the county commission does or does not acknowledge, the opinion speaks for itself. So our opinion doesn't mean anything. The opinion of the judge speaks for itself. And he goes on to say, nothing in the opinion vests the county with the authority to make such a declaration. And that's where I'm coming from. The county attorney once said, it's not, according to the Attorney General, it's not a newspaper of general circulation. This says different, and our county says that lawsuit and that opinion says what it says.
Good.
And in my mind, that you have the better words right there, and those are the words that I would print.
Okay.
I'm really concerned, and I don't. The more we grow as a county, the more lawsuits we're involved with, and we're dealing with 35 to 45 of those things active at any particular time. Tremendous amount of money.
Right.
You guys said you spent a lot of money, and I agree. $20,000 in 20 years is a lot of money.
Well, to me, it was a lot of money.
I agree, but just think of what the taxpayers of Rutherford County are facing week after week and month after month and year after year. And we have an attorney and I think the attorney does a real good job. And what he's saying right here, that nothing in the opinion vests the county with the authority to make such a declaration. I think you've got everything that you need, at least I do, and I would feel real uncomfortable, Mr. Chairman, in making such a motion or even
May I say,
motion. Sure.
we don't want you to make a motion.
Okay.
Now, having seen that and read that, would we have access to what that attorney, the attorney said?
Probably not that. That was an attorney, that was a
It's public.
private. It is, but the whole thing that he sent to us falls under attorney-client privilege based on the information he sent. Now, that doesn't mean you might not be able to talk to him, but my understanding about what was sent to us was considered private.
But we can ask if he can,
But he might, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Josh might talk to
We
him.
authorize him to release that memo, but he can't.
We would like for you to at least ask, because we're still, this situation, and having followed it for 20 years, and I've seen what's gone on, and I've seen the action as a private citizen, and it bothers me. And all I'm saying is, remove the cloud of suspicion and just, if he lets, if our county attorney who ruled at one time, based, as the mayor said, on the information that they had available at that time, it has since changed, and the judge has stated that, if our county attorney states that, it says what it says, and the judge has ruled, we're fine.
okay, Commissioner Johnson, then we'll move on.
You were reading from the memorandum. Okay, this is the bottom line, and this is just cut and dry. On page 2, okay, it says, perhaps more important part of the court's analysis is that the obligation to run notices is on the various court clerks. There is nothing in the law that obligates the clerk to utilize any particular newspaper, whether it is of general circulation or not. That also means that if the county does acknowledge or declare the Rutherford Reader as a newspaper of general circulation, it would have no legal impact on a court clerk utilizing that paper or running the notices. So that's the bottom line.
And we said that last
So
month.
it's all a moot point.
It's politics. That's all we're, I'm just saying.
Okay.
The judge has passed it. Thank y'all, and we appreciate your.
Wait just a minute.
Yes.
I got one more thing I want to say, and I don't know, this is not sitting well with me. This letter, email we got from our attorney, to me, is public information and should be available to the public. I mean, that's my personal feeling now. And he said anything in there saying, well, this is something we should not share as a attorney-client privilege, and there's not that I'm aware of. There is, I'm surprised I misread or didn't read that. But we should be able to give anybody that wants access to that email.
Okay, do you want to make a motion to release this information?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Also, on your iPad, you'll find a list of our litigation. Is there any other business? Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to start something up again.
Thank you.
Or
Thank you.
something else up again.
Okay.
I know all of us in the news have worried and prayed and thought, what can we do about these mass shootings that we keep occurring in our nation? And I've given it a lot of thought. And one thing that I think is something that we could do that may help this, after reading profiles on these idiots that do this kind of thing, a lot of them are after public recognition. They want to be famous. That is why they're doing it. I would like to see our legislators, not only at the state level, but at the national level, enact laws that will stop these people's names from being used. Now, I know our country has free press, but I do know that there are ways that things like this can be taken care of. I mean, if you've got an underage kid, their name's not used. Now, there should be a way that we can stop this proliferation of people trying to be famous. And I think it's simple. I think Canada is actually doing that. remember there was a shooting somewhere around their legislature, and they never released that person's name. And I think that's a good thing. You know, we can call them person X or this idiot or whatever you want to call them, but don't use their name. You know, we can still let our press tell the story, but don't use their name. But I'm going to call my representatives, and the more I've thought about this, you know, I'd like for us as a group to do that. I think it might help. You know, I don't know if y'all feel the same way. You might want some time to think about it. But, you know, whether we do it tonight or sometime in the future, or, you know, y'all as a group decide you don't want to do this, that's okay by me. But like I said, I myself am going to answer this. But I would kind of like your input.
Well, how would you have a trial without naming the defendant?
Well, I'm not saying that there are cases, but I'm talking about national TV. You don't use their name on national TV. I'm talking about radio, newspaper. Okay, the defendant, the shooter, the person. That's what I'm talking about.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone.
Yeah, but
I'm talking to you.
But let's say, okay, Johnny Green Jeans, you know, give you some of it. Johnny Green Jeans is going to trial.
Okay.
And how does the court not release that name?
Well, like I
State
say,
versus Johnny Green Jeans.
well,
I mean, there's a lot of questions I don't
Like I
have an
said,
opinion, I guess.
part of the problem is these people want to be famous. You know, they want to be the next Bonnie and Clyde. They want to be the next, you know, whoever. And one way I see that we can stop that is by not using their names. The defendant, or the accused, the shooter, of the murder.
I think it just comes down, whoops, I'm sorry, Jeff.
I think that, geez, Robert, I think that anything that we discuss and brainstorm can't be a bad to discuss and talk about. That, you know, to me, looking at a devil's advocate or a flip side of that, if it were an organized group, you know, that went in and did an atrocity like that, an organized group that came in here one night when we held a county commission meeting and killed 78 people, including every county commissioner and the mayor sitting in there. And it was an organized terrorist group, okay? Those types of things, you know, I think you're getting into a situation to where I think the general public has a right to know certain things. You know, you mentioned a minute ago about privileged information and those kinds of things. I think that sometimes the general public has kind of a right to know.
Well, I don't care if they know they use a, you know, 6.5 millimeter semi-automatic rifle to kill every one of us, or all the details. I just don't want their name printed.
I hope you didn't give them no idea.
Well, I mean, there are things that we've done here in this county to help that. Number one is we put SROs in our schools, and I'm so glad that we've got them there. I mean, look like Florida now is scurrying to do that, you know, in all their schools. And that's something that we're ahead of the game there. You know, we want people to know that we care about our kids. But, and this is, I'm trying to think of something we can do, you know, that's not restricted to gun owners or anybody else, except stop, you know, making these guys think that there's something wonderful just because they've killed people. They're not.
Well, the biggest problem is that the First Amendment says that Congress shall not pass any law to abridge freedom of the press or free speech. So that law, if it were challenged by somebody, would be thrown out because it's unconstitutional.
Well, I don't know that, Robert. That's why I'm saying I want to forward this to our legislators and see if there's a possibility that we can do this. I know that, you know, Canada's got a free press, yet they're doing this. They're not using these people's names. So, I think there's a possibility there, at least I want to know. I mean, I'm going to talk to my representatives about it, and, I'd like y'all's support on it.
Commissioner Johnson.
How would you circumvent the system as far as access to public records? And see, all this is really considered as public records.
You'd have to decide under what conditions certain crimes have risen to the level that names couldn't be released, just like social security numbers can't be released now. It starts with the Constitution, just like Mr. Stevens has said, and all the way down to all the public records and what's private and what's not private, etc.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's a good idea if the news organizations don't list those people's names and if they would agree not to do that. But we took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and knowing what it says about making laws against restricting somebody's free speech or the freedom of the press, I don't think I could vote for that.
And I'm not asking to repress our Constitution at all. I'm asking for these people's names not to be used. And I know, as good as I'm sitting here, even if we had laws in place to enact that, if somebody on the internet would get a hold of it and boom, it would be out there, but it still wouldn't be blared over the radios, over the televisions. You could say, yes, this guy was in the blue shirt, he had the gun, he's the perpetrator.
Well, I think you did what you needed to do tonight. You're asking everyone to follow their conscience on the value of that and individually take action on our own accord to either call our representative or state senator if that, we feel strongly enough to do that, just to, worse legislation is passed when a groundswell of people have kind of rose up and contacted their legislators. I think you're right, but I lean towards what Mr. Phillips said too. Sometimes I want to know if there's organizations those individuals are involved with that need bad publicity, and need to have a spotlight shine on them. But I tip my cap to you for your conscience. I'm glad that you're speaking where your heart is, and I don't think that's ever a bad thing, to Jeff's point about having those kind of conversations publicly, as elected officials.
Food for thought. So, anything else? Okay, this meeting stands adjourned.
I think you did the right thing. I mean, when you're on some plan on your heart, that doesn't take them all.
I'm going to say,